The Arizona sun pressed down on Desert Shadows, a quiet retirement community where 82-year-old Henry Caldwell faced a nightmare. The local HOA had buried him under $68,000 in fines for trivial violations, a mailbox in the wrong shade of beige, grass half an inch too tall. The HOA board, led by the cunning Margaret Voss, ruled with an iron fist, using fear and forged rules to extort residents. They thought Henry was just another frail retiree. They didn't know he was a retired U.S. Supreme Court justice, quietly building a case to expose their corruption. What unfolded wasn't just justice, a reckoning that shook the nation. Henry sat on his creaky porch rocker, a chipped mug of chamomile tea trembling in his hand. The heat was suffocating, but his eyes were sharp, scanning the street. His grandson, Ethan, 22 and fresh from college, arrived with a duffel bag and a grin. He hadn't seen Henry in months, and the old man looked worn, his frame shrunken. Over the meatloaf dinner, silence hung heavy. Later, under a starlit desert sky, Henry handed Ethan a thick, worn folder. Inside were dozens of HOA letters stamped with red warnings, final notice. Legal action pending. Violations listed were absurd: unapproved window blinds, a decorative cactus out of code. The fines totaled $68,934. Ethan's jaw dropped. "This is insane," he muttered. Henry's voice was low, steely. "They're trying to take my home." Ethan couldn't sleep. The folder's contents spilled across the kitchen table like a crime scene. Letters detailed escalating fines, vague bylaws, and foreclosure threats. One cited Henry's solar lights, installed after a fall, as prohibited ornamentation. By 3 a.m., Ethan was mapping patterns. The HOA's actions were timed to overwhelm, each fine just legal enough to dodge scrutiny but relentless enough to break anyone. It wasn't bureaucracy, it was extortion. Ethan canvassed the neighborhood. Mrs. Larson, a widow, whispered through a cracked door about losing her home over non-compliant shrubs. Mr. Torres, a veteran, sold his truck to pay fines for a chipped fence. "Fight them?" Torres scoffed. "They write the rules, kid. You're dead before you start." Every neighbor told the same story. The HOA was untouchable, a shadow regime thriving on silence. Ethan's blood boiled. How could this happen in America? In Henry's dusty garage, Ethan unlocked a heavy cabinet with a brass key. Inside was a black case labeled SCJ File 007, Private. It held a legal arsenal, folders of case law, audio recordings of HOA meetings, and bank records tracing shady payments. One file dissected a 2009 HOA case, exposing how vague laws trapped homeowners. Audio logs captured Voss joking about targeting easy marks. Henry stepped into the doorway, leaning on his cane. "I wrote the laws they're abusing," he said, his voice cutting like a blade. "They thought I'd forget how to fight." Henry had been watching the HOA for years, documenting their scams, shell companies owned by board members' relatives, fake maintenance contracts, and fines targeting the vulnerable. "Why wait?" Ethan asked. Henry's eyes gleamed. "You only get one shot to dismantle a machine like this." The old justice wasn't broken, he was biding his time. Ethan fired the first shot, an email to a watchdog group with scanned HOA letters. By morning, a reporter called. Within days, ProPublica and legal aid groups were involved. Victims emerged, 43 in 2 weeks, each with stories of harassment or lost homes. Henry guided Ethan to draft a class-action lawsuit, Caldwell vs. Desert Shadows HOA. The HOA hit back with cease and desist letters and anonymous threats, late-night calls, a chilling "We're watching." Ethan's brakes failed one morning, a mechanic confirmed tampering. Fear gripped him, but Henry's calm resolve kept him steady. "Document everything," Henry said. "Even their threats are evidence." The neighborhood stirred. Mrs. Larson shared foreclosure papers. Torres handed over receipts. Fear cracked, replaced by defiance. Discovery in court was a bombshell. The HOA's records revealed shell companies funneling millions to board members' families. Memos showed targeted fines against troublesome residents, marked with pressure in red. Travel receipts exposed board conferences at luxury resorts, no agendas, just spa bills. Worst, arbitrators who upheld HOA fines had ties to Voss's law firm. It wasn't mismanagement, it was a criminal empire. The trial in Phoenix was electric. Henry, in a gray suit, sat calmly beside Ethan, facing Voss's smug attorneys. The defense claimed Henry misunderstood HOA rules, but evidence shredded their lies. Exhibit A: memos targeting widows. Exhibit B: bank transfers to fake companies. Exhibit C: audio of Voss laughing. He'll die before he wins. A whistleblower, a former HOA treasurer, testified via video, voice shaking. We hid payments. They said no one checks. The jury leaned forward. Reporters packed the room. The HOA's lawyers scrambled, their objections frantic. Judge Elena Martinez delivered the verdict like a guillotine. The Desert Shadows HOA engaged in systemic abuse, coercion, and fraud. The board was dissolved, fines voided, foreclosures reversed. A federal probe was ordered for racketeering and tax evasion. Silence followed, no cheers, just a collective exhale. Outside, Henry faced cameras with quiet power. This was about accountability. They bet on our silence. We answered with the truth. He walked away, the crowd parting in awe. The fallout was swift. Homes were returned, fines refunded, and a federal task force audited the HOA. A resident-led council replaced the board, transparent and fair. 3 months later, Henry passed quietly in hospice, Ethan reading the Federalist Papers at his side. Henry's last words. The law needs courage to mean anything. Ethan buried him with his Supreme Court pin and avoided HOA notice. 6 months on, Desert Shadows bloomed anew. Barbecues replaced fear. Neighbors laughed openly. A bronze plaque at the entrance read, "The Caldwell Principle, no one escapes accountability." Ethan visits Henry's porch, the rocker still creaking. Justice didn't just win, it rebuilt a community. Was the HOA's greed pure evil, or were they victims of their power? Should Ethan have risked his safety to fight? Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do against such corruption? Like, subscribe, and let's spark a debate on justice and accountability.